All right, we're on.
Thanks everybody for joining us today for Senate Chat, and we're 5 weeks through the session today, and there's only a couple of weeks left, so we're seeing a lot of movement on bills right now. A lot of people are getting anxious, a lot of bills up on the board, and a lot of work left to do. Today was Country and Western Day on the Hill, so we saw a lot of people in Western hats and jeans and cowboy boots. And of course they can't wear a hat on the floor, so they had to take their hats off to meet the rules on the floor. Today also we recognized the families of our fallen heroes, our military personnel that have passed away in the last year. It was a solemn time for all of us as we were able to recognize all the families and see everybody that's affected by the passing of our servicemen. We wanted to recognize them, and it's one of the really solemn moments that we have on the Senate floor every year. We also recognized a lot of outstanding teachers and teachers who have been recognized for being great teachers in their different districts, and administrators. And we recognized the UEA. We had the cat in the hat on the floor today and read an excerpt from Dr. Seuss. So one of those days where we had a kind of a mix of a lot of things going on, a solemn moment or two, and then a lighter moment to finish it up. So with that, we're open to questions from the press, if there are any. Any questions?
What are your thoughts this afternoon about the hate crimes bill?
I think it's going to be very heavily debated. Obviously, it's set for a time certain, so that people who are interested will be coming. I know that there has been some discussion about the bill for a while, and it of course passed out of committee, so it's kind of passed through the process and up to the point where I think we're going to have a very interesting debate this afternoon on that bill, and I'm interested frankly to hear the debate. I want to hear what everybody has to say.
Have you made up your mind?
I really haven't. I kind of lean towards keeping the death penalty or the hate crimes bill that we have in place now. We passed a few years ago, maybe enough. I really want to hear though the debate and what Senator Urquhart has to say about this hate crimes bill and why it might be needed more. Senator Hilliard, any thoughts on the hate crimes bill?
Well, I've been opposed to it for a long time, and two main reasons. Number one is it expands the area that we can claim civil rights as we work in the area of criminal prosecution. And as long as we have the federal law of Section 1983 and 87, in other words, attorney fees, I think every time we expand that, we open ourselves up to litigation. And I think that civil rights litigation is out of control. Second reason is I don't think we need it. I share with it. I had a case up in Logan. I wasn't involved in it. I just read the paper, but it involved very clearly a hate crime, and the judge really threw the book at the guy. Now, most of the time when you go to court, you can go to jail from 0 to 10 years, or you get a county jail to one year, and usually get maybe a weekend or 2 weeks. But the judge has the full power to put somebody in jail for that longer time. So I think it can be handled in the sentencing process under our current laws. And they get in areas of, what's hate crime. That was kind of funny. Apparently, the committee, somebody said being a BYU fan has to be a hate crime, and this and somebody said else. No, that's a disability. But so what is it? How do you prove it? And I just think we have enough tools in the court right now to do it without creating new definitions.
I just wanted to ask you about a bill that you've had circled for a while for tax incentives to refine Tier 3 gas.
Yeah.
Is there a problem with that bill, or why haven't you moved it?
We're trying to work through the language to make sure that we do a true incentive, and there's a paragraph or two the way the bill is drafted that has maybe opened up more than we really want to with the bill. The bill wants to incent the refineries to move to Tier 3 fuels, and when Ledger Research started looking at the language and our fiscal analysts started looking at the language, they thought it might do a little bit more than that. It might actually deal with taxes that are currently owed. We want to make sure that we don't do that. So we're trying to take that part out and make it very clear so that all we do is have a starting point where we're doing a true incentive to the refineries to go to Tier 3 fuel. We still think that's a very important thing to do. And so we're trying to get the language right on that. We've had a number of potential drafts that we've looked at. We want to make sure it's right, and that's why it's still circled. It'll be coming back up, we think, very soon. I think we've got that language worked out.
I have a couple of questions off the hill. House Speaker Paul Ryan will be here next week to campaign for Mia Love. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I'm not aware
Okay.
much about it either. So.
It's just, okay. And then, what are your thoughts on the potential for Donald Trump to be the GOP nominee this year?
Well, my thoughts are kind of the train is really rolling, and next Tuesday is going to be very telling, Super Tuesday, and we'll probably see where the Republican nomination, and we'll have a really good indication, I think, by the end of that day, where the Republican nomination is going to go. I have said that I'm supportive of the Trump campaign. I like his thoughts on a lot of things, including Veterans Affairs. He wants to clean up and make sure that we have a system there that doesn't have any fraud in it, and take much better care of our veterans that we in the state of Utah, I think, have done a very good job on, but nationally we want to make sure that we're doing a very good job of taking care of those folks that are serving our country. And I like his position there. I also like the fact that I think he can pull a financial team together that will lead us into a strong economy and a stronger America over the next term or so. So, and for a lot of other reasons, I like the positions that he has. So we'll kind of see what's going on next Tuesday. It's going to be interesting. It's Super Tuesday.
I'm really a Marco Rubio supporter. I think he brings the international perspective that we really need as the President of the United States. And I think we can get other people to do the domestic policies. It's not that I'm against anybody. So if Mr. Trump gets the nomination, I'll certainly support him. Picking him right now is I'm a Marco Rubio supporter.
Thank you.
Questions from our viewers?
We had one come in yesterday just after we closed. Let me find it. This came from Jason Williams, but it was a question from a listener on their radio show who was on the air very excited about the U of U's audit, but the listener wanted to know why the Utah legislature doesn't do more of auditing universities.
We have. I know USU, for example, has been audited on student fees. That comes to my mind immediately. I know there's several areas that they've audited at USU, and I'm sure they have the other schools as well. So it's nothing really new. And I can call, find out, and get exactly how many. I'll tell Jason. I'll give him the telephone number, or at least I'll call and see how many audits have been done at USU by our legislative auditor. But I think it's not just USU. I think all the schools have had audits about it.
You know, our legislative auditors do a really great job of looking at some of the questions that we have with what's going on with our budget. And this is just one of those areas that we just want to take a look at. They come back and make a report to the legislature, to the audit committee, and then we get the reports in the legislature, and we're able to find out what's going on in a lot of the programs that we deal with at the statewide level. And sometimes an audit leads to better government, better management, and sometimes it leads to other questions and other audits that may take place. Maybe this one will lead to more audits or more questions being raised, and we'll see how what we find out after the audit is complete. They do a great job, our legislative auditor. All right. Any other questions? Thanks for
How would you
joining
assess?
Senate Chat. Yeah.
How would you assess the session so far?
I think the first of the session was extremely busy as people tried to work through appropriations committees, get bills ready and into committees and get moving. It's kind of settled in now. We're to the point now where we really have a lot of bills up on the board, and now you're going to see really a lot of debate on the floor on bills and lots of ideas. So I guess for the most part, I'd assess the session as being busier than normal, with a lot going on, but maybe not quite as big of issues as we have dealt with in the past couple of sessions. There really haven't been the big kinds of issues like we did last year with transportation and justice reform and all of the big items that we were discussing last year. But this year we've really got a lot of ideas out there. Session, obviously the budget is a big part of what we do, and we don't have quite as much money this year. Discretionary, not nearly as much money as we did last year, so the budgeting process is going to be tough, and it's going to be very difficult because there are some expectations out there that we're not going to be able to meet. But I think it's been a productive session and a quiet session for the most part.
Do you think when you look at a couple of the bills that have gotten a great deal of press, the medical marijuana issues, the hate crimes issues, do you view those as vital to your discussion? Do you view them as a distraction? How do you characterize them?
Well, I certainly think they're vital to the process, and the discussion is very important to everybody that's involved. Frankly, I didn't make up my mind on medical marijuana until I heard most of the discussion on the bill. It was a long discussion. We had a lot of testimony, and there were moving parts as the bill was amended. But when you think about the process of what goes into a bill like that, that's kind of controversial, and there are a lot of people that are interested and very emotional. It's a process that you have a committee hearing. In this case, we discussed this bill last year, so it went all the way back to last year with people learning about what's going on there and what's being presented, and then it gets to the floor and we have nearly a full day of debate, and the bill is circled. And then, so you have more time to talk about it off the floor, and then it comes back and you deal with it. When there's a controversial bill, you can say there's a little bit of distraction, but for the most part, it's part of our process. I think it's an important part of our process to have those kinds of ideas come forward. It's how states manage and how we do such a great job, and I think why the federal government has not been able to move forward with ideas, state governments can. We're kind of the laboratories of democracy, and we hear all of these issues, and they're very fully vetted. So they're certainly, they take up a lot of time, but it's a very important part of our process and what we do here, I think. Senator Hilliard, what do you think?
Well, that is always the most important thing we do, in my view, is the budget. And we've really opened the budget up, but I think people are bored with it. It's hard to get excited about that. But for the first 2 weeks, we spent time doing our base budget. We all now have a budget in place, which gives us a great advantage. If we get to the very end and can't come to closure, we can mark way here. We got a budget in place. We don't want to do that. So the things that become really interesting in the budget will be, what's the WPU? What's the salary increase? What's the funding for some of the big things, Medicaid? How are we going to pay for Medicaid expansion? And those kinds of things kind of drive us as well. But those things will now be brought to a head this next week. We have to be done by next Friday when we do it.
And the answers to the WPU and salary increases and Medicaid are what?
I'd tell you, but then you wouldn't come back again. I don't know. There's 3 players that have to do it. One will be the Senate leadership, the House leadership, and the governor. And we'll have all input and discussion where we are and have to allocate the money. We have $80 million less this year than last year. $70 million when we started, and then we lost $10 million when the new revenues came in. So that was a real challenge because all expenses are more just because of the increase. For example, WPU last year was like 26 or 27 million. Now it's 28 or 29 million for a 1% increase. So it just makes it that much tougher to put together.
Is that where you see that falling? Is it at 1%?
I'll bet it'll be at least 1%. No, I don't know. I can guess. I can say I'd like to have it 25%, but I know we don't have the money to fund that. So it's going to be, like I say, a compromise of those three entities working together.
Where are your jeans today? It's supposed to be Western.
You know, my jeans are the type I wear out on the farm, and I wouldn't dare wear them down a place like this. This is as Western as I can get.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Senate Chat. Always like to visit with those viewers that are interested, and we appreciate you joining us and also answering the questions from the press. Thanks.